Hey everybody, John with Foodscaping Utah. Holly's behind the camera. We're gonna do a one bed veg update. It's June 23rd today, and we got a lot to do. So we're going to cut out the peas, plant some squash for a second crop there. We're gonna train some of the tomatoes. We're gonna take a look at our peppers, cut out the rest of the lettuce, and maybe harvest some carrots and beets. So let's start with the peas. And these could have come out maybe like a week ago, but our squash that we're transplanting in after wasn't quite ready. So we let them hang on for a week, and they actually did put on a few more peas. So we got a really good harvest off the peas. If you've been following along, you know that this is a dwarf variety. So it only grows about 2 feet, produces a lot of crop really early, which is good, especially when the heat rolls in. So what we're gonna do with those is just cut them out. And I like to use pruners. You can either rip them out or you can prune them and leave the roots in. So basically I'm just pruning like that. And then for easy harvest, once you know that you're gonna take them out, you can take them out like that and then harvest them in the shade if it's hot. So I'll just throw these in here and we can pause it, and I'll cut the rest out and then we'll plant the squash. Okay, so it's the next day now, the 24th. We went ahead and planted the squash last night, but didn't finish the rest of the video just because it was really loud in the neighborhood. But as you can see, we took all the peas out, planted the squash, and when you're transplanting, particularly squash, cucumber, pumpkin, anything in the cucurbit family, you do want to be a little bit more delicate on the roots. You'll see when we transplanted these, we teased them out really carefully. Tomatoes, they respond really well to transplant, but cucurbits, you need to be a little bit more delicate, and then make sure they have plenty of water in the transition time. Another quick tip there is we planted these in the evening before a little bit of cool weather, and we actually even got a little bit of rain this morning, which we were super grateful for. But in the heat of the mid-afternoon sun is not the best time to transplant this time of year, when it's like we've been almost hitting 100 a lot of the days. So we got those in. We're excited about that. In the next video we'll show you how we're going to build a trellis to trellis these on. I mentioned these are a butternut squash, but it's a smaller variety of butternut squash. Typically, winter squash grow to be a huge climbing plant. These two are a little bit smaller variety. Butterscotch, I believe, is the variety, right, Holly? So we went ahead and put two, and we're going to build a trellis here, kind of like we did on those trellises down there, and we'll show you how we do that in the next video. Now, the other thing that we wanted to show in this video is a little bit of tomato pruning. As you can see, our tomatoes are doing really, really well. We even have one that's starting to ripen. It's got a lot of fruit set on it. This is a very early variety, Stupus. This one's the Roma, and you can see it's got tons of fruit, but I don't see any signs of ripening yet. My approach to pruning tomatoes in this type of setting is just cut off the stuff that doesn't look good. Like you can see these. We're just going to cut these out. That's not helping the plant at all. That has some cold damage from early in the season. You can cut that out. Just clean up the plant a little. You don't really have to prune tomatoes, and there's always debates on whether it's worth it or not. The main thing in this particular setting for pruning for me is to keep it kind of managed and organized. We don't want the tomatoes taking over the entire bed and blocking out the sun. Like if you come around here, Holly, I don't know how well you can see, but it's already growing into the space of the marigold plant, and the celery is here, and we don't want it crowding out our peppers, which are doing well. Here's some jalapenos coming. And so the main thing with the tomatoes is we just want to keep them in their space. You can let them go a little bit wild if you want. But here they've got a little bit more space than they do have that way, but we also don't want them crowding the squash. So I'm just going to kind of look for stuff that I think is growing where we don't want it. If you do get into tomato pruning, this is what's called a sucker. You can see it's growing out of the axle. So this will like form a new branch, you could think it of, or you could, is a way you could say it, right? So I'm gonna take that out. That's a sucker there. This is growing totally the wrong way. It's gonna end up over here, but I think I'm gonna want to save the fruit there. So what we'll do here is cut it back right here. Okay, and that should still develop fruit, but now it's not gonna produce a bunch more growth this way. The other thing for managing them, you can get some tomato clips, or this is garden nursery tie, and we reuse it a lot. But to keep this up, you know, if you have a tomato cage or something, you can just clip it in. These are actually designed for more formal tomato pruning or training and pruning, where you do a single stem up a line. But in this case, we didn't have a trellis or a line to do that. So with the tomato cages, I try to keep it just mostly close to the tomato cage. Things that are growing out of control, I just prune those off, and then manage it best you can. Like you can see, these are super vigorous. So we'll get a lot of tomatoes, and I'll just kind of prune it back as we go. Does that make sense? Okay, so the other things I wanted to talk about real quick is the beets and carrots. We're super excited because they're producing now. And the approach we use for harvesting these, especially beets, carrots too really, is we like to pick just the biggest ones first, and that's also a way to thin, to let the rest of the carrots or beets grow and get a little bit bigger. So this is going to be real hard to get a good shot, but if we get in here, you can see we can find the biggest beet. You see that okay? Mm-hmm. Okay, and then we're just going to twist that one out. We'll take that one. That's pretty good. Nice looking beet. And then, you know, you can kind of push the soil back in there, and that'll give these a little bit more time to get bigger. And if they're really crowded, you can pull out some small ones too. I'm going to take this one. Really, these can be harvested at any size. You don't have to wait for it to get to a certain size to harvest. You don't have to harvest all of them at once. But I'll take one more right here, even though this one's a little bit smaller. So that's not a bad beet harvest, but you can see these weren't thinned well enough from the start. You know, you can, if we were a little more on top of it, we would have thinned them more. Try to twist. This one's going to be a little hard. A little twist when you pull it out. There we go. So that's not too bad for some beets. Same thing with the carrots. And it doesn't hurt to eat smaller carrots. This is way too many here. It should really only be about 1 carrot per inch. But we'll see if we can get one out of there. Carrots, sometimes you need to loosen the soil a little. This is going to be a small one. But that's still going to be tasty, right? And then that'll give the one next to it a little bit more space to grow bigger. And then if you get them thinned, you eat your thinnings, and then the rest have more time to get bigger. So I think that's the main thing we want to talk about. Let's check on the onions, see how they're doing. Yeah, they definitely need more time. You can see they're starting to swell up though. That'll be the same thing where we harvest the biggest ones first. But we're at least, I don't know, probably 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks out on those. We should be able to start harvesting tomatoes and jalapenos though, which is going to be super exciting. Make some salsa. Oh yeah, one last thing. Our basil, because of the heat we've had these last few weeks, is starting to flower already, which we don't want it to do. So, you know, it's kind of going to want to do that. Can you see it okay? There you go. There we go. There we go. So we're going to cut out the flowers on it and basically just harvest that. And then hope, so we can eat that basil for sure. That's going to be delicious, but then we're going to hope that it does some more branching gets a little bit bushier, and then prolongs the quality leaf. Because obviously this part is the good part, right? The flowers you can eat too, but they're not, you know, what you would use for basil. But we'll do an update pretty soon, building the trellis, showing you the jalapenos, or the other peppers too, and the tomatoes. And that's about it, right, Holly? Any other questions or anything you think? Okay, thanks for watching Foodscaping Utah, and grow your own.